Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our current affairs lecture series. Now today we are going to cover current affairs from 11th of August. So whatever news items were there that featured in today's newspapers and which were important from the perspective of UPSC examination, well, shall be covered today. Okay, now needless to say this, make this lecture series a part of your daily routine, because if you don't, then you won't be able to remember these current affairs. Okay, and current affairs forms the most dominant chunk of your UPSC examination, whether it's prelims or mains. It's really important to get a hold of current affairs, right? Therefore, make this lecture series a part of your daily routine, a daily habit of yours. Alright then, enough of the introduction, let's straight away dive into the lecture. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. Okay, so let's begin. So daily current affairs, 11th of August 2026, and here are the topics. Assam-Arunachal border dispute, because there was a recent event, and Assam and Arunachal, the state borders, are disputed. So we'll talk about this dispute, okay? Then topic number 2 is Mark Zuckerberg's AI Manifesto. Basically, Mark Zuckerberg made a huge announcement saying that you don't need a centralized AI. We will make personalized AI for each and every individual. Now, how will that work out? And what are the implications of that? We'll talk about this. Then, recently, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore or Bengaluru, well, they have found a way to convert waste milk packets to building materials. So this is a good example, or basically this is good news for recycling in India. And recycling is part of circular economy. You remember this term? It has been talked about by Prime Minister Modi and many other in his cabinet. Circular economy. Recycling is very important for that. So this is good news in that area. And last topic would be related to RBI worried about rising unsecured loans, rising credit card debt, rising consumer loans. Okay, this has really worried RBI. Why? Well, because these kinds of loans are unsecured. Now, we'll get into this entire matter in detail, but just be patient a little. Okay, so these are the 4 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. So let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, and that is Assam-Arunachal border dispute. Now, listen to me very carefully. Okay. You see, generally we have this perception that there are no border disputes between states of India, okay? And even if there are some border disputes, they are resolved amicably, because after all, we are living in one country. The issue comes up when there is a border dispute between 2 countries, right? So state border disputes are resolved amicably. Generally, this is the perception, but actually this is not true. And the biggest case in this area is, and biggest evidence that this is not true, is the recent dispute between Assam and Arunachal. Now, I have used the word recent, but the issue, the border dispute, is not recent. It has a long history. Recently, what happened was that, well, there were these unknown people from Arunachal, and they opened fire on civilians. Before that, a couple of years ago, well, the policemen of the 2 states fought. Okay, they opened firing on each other. Now, these are certain things that are unheard of. But border disputes between states can also be serious. Now, we will inquire into this border dispute between Assam and Arunachal. What is the historical background of this dispute, and why hasn't it been resolved so far, and what is the way forward? So let's dive deep into this issue. So let's begin, okay? So Assam-Arunachal border dispute. So you should be familiar with this map, okay? This is Arunachal Pradesh and this is Assam. Assam shares land border with almost all the states of Northeast, right? But Assam also shares a significant land border with Arunachal Pradesh, and this particular area is disputed. Okay. Now, what was the context? Why was this dispute again in the news? Well, a violent firing incident occurred along the interstate boundary at Minmang Basti in Assam's Dhemaji district. Unidentified individuals from Arunachal Pradesh opened fire on Assam residents, while injuring 18 people. Now, before this dispute, a couple of years ago, the state police of both states, they opened fire on each other. So it is a huge dispute. Though both states are working amicably to resolve this dispute, yet there are these violent skirmishes. Okay. Now, why are they there? We'll talk about that. But first, let's get into the background of this dispute. Assam-Arunachal border conflict pipeline. So, well, in 1951, the division happened between Assam and Union Territory. Back then, Arunachal was a Union Territory, NEFA. So 300, this much square kilometer transferred from NEFA, that is northeastern frontier province. Okay, so NEFA to Assam Plain District. So some territory from Arunachal was transferred to Assam in 1951. Arunachal did not like it. Demarcation impasse, 1984. Arunachal disputes, 1951 transfer and 1989 Supreme Court judgment also. They do not like this transfer of land. De-escalation accord. Well, this dispute went on and on and on, and well, there were violent clashes between the two police. Because of that, the two sides, the two states signed this accord in 2023. Historic 2023 MOU signed to resolve 123 disputed villages. I mean, this entire border dispute involves 123 villages. So, under this MOU, both sides would form a committee to inquire into this matter. Okay. Field encroachments. Localized land friction causes clashes, like in the Dhimaji, the current one. Right? Now, historical roots, well, you need to be specific. Okay. So, in 1951, the land transfer that we talked about was done by Bordoloi Committee. So, Bordoloi Committee gave this recommendation. Gopinath Bordoloi led subcommittee recommended transferring this much land of plain areas from Nefa to Assam. Nefa, Northeastern Frontier Agency, now it is called Arunachal. In 1989, Arunachal rejected this boundary transfer. Assam filed an original suit in Supreme Court seeking enforcement of 1951 notification, and Supreme Court sided with Assam. Arunachal did not like this. Okay. Now, this issue went on. So, the timeline is that it started from 1951 and well, it led to violent clashes in the early 2020s. So, in 2023, both sides decided to sign an accord. To bypass prolonged litigation in Supreme Court, both sides initiated executive negotiations in January 2022. Leveraging 12 regional committees, these committees were formed comprising ministers, local MLAs, district officials to conduct joint field verifications across 123 disputed villages. Okay, spanning 12 districts in Arunachal, 8 districts in Assam. So they created 12 regional committees. All these 12 committees would inquire, a certain set of villages are attributed to, are given to each committee to inquire into. They would conduct field verifications. This entire accord was known as this was MOU. This 2022 understanding was called Namsai Declaration. Okay. First, the agreement was reached on 37 villages, which was later extended to 123 villages in 2023. So remember this term Namsai Declaration. It's very important. Okay. Now, the thing is, remember I told you in the beginning that the perception is that there are no state border disputes, and even if they are resolved amicably. Why do we feel that they can be resolved amicably? Because our constitution and various parliamentary laws already have certain provisions through which states can resolve their disputes. Okay. Now, in this case, the states weren't able to resolve these disputes despite these constitutional and legal provisions. Now, first of all, let's familiarize ourselves with these constitutional and legal provisions. Okay. Yeah. So, what are the constitutional and statutory remedies? So, Article 131, well, is Supreme Court. Supreme Court's original jurisdiction. So, what is Supreme Court's original jurisdiction? All cases related to federal disputes. Federal disputes means dispute between two states, two or more states, or center or states. Federal disputes would directly go to Supreme Court. It won't go via appeals, okay? Not to a High Court and then via appeal to a Supreme Court. No, directly to Supreme Court, because this is Supreme Court's original jurisdiction. And this case is going on in Honorable Supreme Court, okay? Then there is a provision for cooperative federalism. Article 263 allows the President of India to form interstate council. In this interstate council, well, ministers from different states would come and discuss matters of mutual interest. So this is there. Plus, not constitutional, but statutory provision. As per State Reorganization Act of 1956, each zone of India will have a zonal council also. So there is North Zone, West Zone, South Zone, Central Zone, East Zone, Northeast Zone. Okay, not Central Zone, okay, Northeast Zone. So this matter is handled by Northeastern Zonal Council as well. Clear? So these are the legal provisions. Now these are all good, but despite these provisions, why this issue hasn't been resolved so far? Well, there are certain reasons. First of all, this issue can only be resolved via physical on-ground verification, but that takes a lot of time. Then, customary forest rights and state boundaries. Local tribal communities rely on forest resources spanning administrative lines. So there is a particular forest that gets split between Assam and Arunachal. Now, these forest communities put pressure on their respective state governments to bring that entire forest into their territory. This is there, okay, because forests know no borders. Then encroachments in forest reserves, rapid population growth and agricultural expansion lead to active land clearing in sensitive forest corridors. And that is why there are these violent clashes. Field level enforcement gaps. Distance from capital seats delay immediate police response from district headquarters during local fights. Yes, this makes sense because, well, it is a forest area, heavily forested area. I mean, a lot of time is wasted bringing reinforcements, police reinforcements from district headquarters to the dispute site or the fighting site. So this is the reason, right? Now, what is the way forward? Well, simple. Accelerate Survey of India joint demarcation. So Survey of India, okay, Surveyor General of India should conduct active field verifications, keeping both states on board, and conduct a joint field level survey. Then establish joint border peace committees. Civilians on both sides should create, or government should facilitate the creation of joint border peace committees. The responsibility of these peace committees would be to basically not allow any violent incident to happen. Then joint police patrols in sensitive sectors and community-centric conservation management. This is for forest conservation, so that there is no dispute between the two sides, of the border. Okay, disputes between people who inhabit the same forest, right? So this is for forest disputes. This is the reason, right? That's about it. Okay. Now let's quickly shift our focus to a science and technology related news item, and that is very path breaking. Mark Zuckerberg's AI Manifesto. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg released a video on Instagram, Facebook, and he made an announcement. He said that Meta is not going to make these closed door centralized AI models like ChatGPT and all. They will create personalized AI models that can be downloaded by any person and modified according to their own needs. You can't do that with ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT learns from your prompts, but you cannot change the model. Okay, you cannot have your own personalized AI, right? Companies need that and all that stuff. Mark Zuckerberg has announced that we are going to create open weight AI models that can be used by anyone and modified by anyone as per their own needs. So he is announcing personalized AI. Now, for that personalized AI to work, you need a lot of data centers because AI is backed by data centers, right? You need a lot of data centers, and these data centers require a lot of electricity, a lot of water also. So there is a resource crunch. That is why this policy is being criticized by critics. Yet, it is a revolutionary idea. So what are the 4 pillars of Mark Zuckerberg's AI manifesto? Let's quickly talk about it. And we won't get into the technical details, okay, because they're not that important. But we will get familiar with the general idea that Mark Zuckerberg is projecting. Okay, so let's begin. So Mark Zuckerberg's AI manifesto. So Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg published 6,500-word manifesto titled "The Future is for Everyone." Okay, the document addresses a central debate in AI, whether frontier AI and superintelligence should be tightly controlled and centralized within a few institutions, few companies or government, or broadly distributed through open weight models to individuals. You see, both sides of the debate have valid arguments. Some say that AI should be highly centralized and controlled by responsible institutions, responsible companies, responsible government institutions. Why? Because AI can be misused. But then there are others who talk about democratization of technology, and Mark Zuckerberg is one of them. That AI shouldn't be centralized, closed door, only accessible to few companies. Okay, few companies can control AI. ChatGPT is wholly controlled by OpenAI. Okay, so therefore he is advocating for open weight models. Open weight models are those models which can be adjusted, like you might create a new ChatGPT of yours if you are given access to this open weight ChatGPT model, right? Meta is going to provide that. Clear? So paradigm shift in global AI architecture. So up till now, we talked about centralized AI. Okay, so OpenAI's ChatGPT is there, Anthropic's Claude is there. These have closed APIs. They charge a hefty fee if you need a personalized AI for your own company, automation in your own company. And it's basically subscription based. Concentrates power in elite labs, focuses on strict alignment and safety constraints, risk institutional gatekeeping, monopoly, AI monopolies there. Now, Meta is talking about open weight distributed model. And Meta is not alone. NVIDIA and open source models are there. Okay. Distributes personalized super intelligence to individuals. You'll have your own AI model, it can be tweaked by you. Democratizes tools via open weight model released. Yes, there is a risk. Dual use, misuse in cyber and bioterrorism. Okay. Some bad elements of society might use these open weight models to do their bad activities, right? This is a risk. But then Meta believes it is a better risk to have than this monopoly. This is the issue. Okay. So what are the 4 pillars of Mark Zuckerberg's AI manifesto? Well, he wants distributed AI power, personalized superintelligence, open weight models as the core distribution vector. We'll do a proper table. Okay. We'll take a look at a proper table which does a comparison of open weight models and closed models. But his idea is open weight models, redefined approach to risk redressal. Earlier, AI risks was believed to be that, well, wrong actors in society get their hands on AI. That is why AI is kept closed with some companies and government. Well, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't believe in that. And yes, he has announced that to have personalized superintelligence, you need huge data centers. Okay, so infrastructure expansion and local community compacts. That you'll basically do contracts with local communities to host a data center, and all that stuff is there. But these are the 4 key pillars. Now, first, before anything else, let's compare closed source centralized models with open weight distributed models. So control mechanisms, application programming interface, these are technical details. If you don't understand them, don't worry, UPSC won't ask. Just remember these terms. Paywalls are there, you have to pay for a subscription, strict corporate guardrails. This is publicly downloadable. Local execution, edge device deployment. Highly centralized, distributed, democratized technology. Enterprise automation. Okay, how can you use this AI? So some companies can automate their processes, B2B SaaS integration, software as a service integration, proprietary research. Okay, research and development institutions can use it on a subscription basis. Well, this will help a grassroots developer. Local startups who cannot afford those heavy subscriptions, well, they will use it. Sovereignty impact. Now, if AI is under control of only a few companies, governments can easily control them. But over here, well, governments would be powerless a little. Okay, there is a huge risk that, well, terrorists, criminals might use AI. But then that risk is with everything. Guns is also a risky thing. But we have, I mean, you understand my point, right? Now, how is this beneficial or relevant for India? Let's talk about India. India's strategic playbook in the OpenAI era. First of all, these open weight models would really charge up our digital public infrastructure, like Bhashini platform, our translation, I mean English to Indian languages translation, Diksha, UPI. These open weight models, India can tweak these open weight models to power its digital public infrastructure. Then it totally aligns with India AI mission. Open weights lower compute costs. Open weight lowers costs for companies, domestic startups. Okay. Sovereign data protection, local fine tuning prevents cross-border leaks of data. Currently, India's data is with OpenAI servers. But if we'll download our own AI from Meta and use it in India, there are no data leaks possible. Okay, this is there. This is advantageous for India. Okay, so for India, it's good news, right? All right, now what can be the way forward from this? Well, that is given in your notes, but I mean, you need to focus on whatever we have discussed in this lecture. Okay, that's about it. Though, do not forget to read from the notes. It's very important, right? And now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, and that is waste milk packets to building materials. So let's quickly finish this news. It's a normal innovation news, though it's big. But normal innovation news. Indian scientists have achieved something very important. Those scientists were from Indian Institute of Sciences in Bengaluru. And what have they achieved? Well, there is a lot of plastic waste. One category of plastic waste is these plastic packets for milk, plastic milk packets. Now they are wasted. We generate a lot of plastic waste. Now these plastic waste packets can be recycled to create building materials. Okay, That ways, well, we'll be able to create buildings out of these waste packets. So it will be recycled into India's economy. This is good example of circular economy. And this would also reduce plastic waste generated in India. So it's a win-win situation, right? So let's talk about this, its advantages, disadvantages, challenges, right? So let's begin. So waste milk packets to building materials. So this is the context. So researchers at IISc Bengaluru, led by Professor Suryasarthi Bose, have developed an innovative chemistry-driven recycling process that converts discarded single-use plastic milk packets into high-performance, engineering-grade plastics and durable building materials. This technology offers a sustainable, value-added solution to one of India's most ubiquitous and unmanaged plastic waste streams. Plastic waste is a huge problem in India. Now, it's not the first time that plastic is being recycled to produce building materials. But up till now, hard plastic items were recycled to build building materials, like bottles, plastic bottles. They are made up of hard plastic, right? But these soft plastic packets, okay, these Tetra packs, not Tetra packs, but soft milk packets. Well, there was no technology to recycle them into building materials, create hard building materials. IISc has achieved precisely that. So take a look at this comparison. Earlier, plastic was converted into building materials, but the technology was called thermofusion panel technology. Shreds and fuses multi-layer plastics into durable structural panels, honeycomb panels. Used for terminal walls at Bengaluru airport, provides waterless, high-strength alternative to traditional brick and mortar construction. Now, IISc uses Vitrimer blending technology because this technology, thermofusion, is possible only in case of hard plastic, like used on plastic bottles. So this Vitrimer blending technology mixes this soft plastic, I'm using layman terminology, with hard plastic, and therefore soft plastic can be recycled. Blends weak polythene with propylene via Vitrimer compatibilizer molecules. Now, this is how you use these soft plastic packets. Well, it allows 3D printing of outdoor furniture, auditorium podiums, high strength engineering plastics. So these are the applications. Now, scale of the problem. What problem this innovation has solved? So already we are suffering from massive generation of plastic waste and we don't know what to do with it. Okay, now as far as hard plastics are concerned, we have found a way to create building materials from it. But soft plastic waste is also generated in huge volumes. Now we have found a way to recycle that as well. Okay, but there are many problems with these milk packets. You see, these milk packets have an inner plastic layer which is made up of dark UV. That inner layer blocks UV radiations. Now that inner layer is generally thrown away by recyclers because it is useless. Okay. Then rag picker disincentive. Well, hard plastic bottles have higher weight to volume ratio. So these rag pickers, those who recycle or those who pick waste, well, they don't get that much return on these light weight plastics. Okay. So they don't pick only. They don't pick these from waste. Then multi-layer plastic complexity. Well, these plastic packets are multi-layer and it is very difficult to peel each layer. Only then you'll be able to mix it. So these were the challenges. Well, IISc found a way to solve these challenges. Okay. What is the technological breakthrough? Well, they created molecular compatibilizer, Vitrimers. What Vitrimers would do is they would create a bond between polyethylene milk packets and polypropylene, these shampoo bottles, these hard plastic. So these Vitrimers, basically, long story cut short, they create a bond, durable bond between these soft plastics and hard plastics. And that ways you can use soft plastics also. Okay. Plus it allows multiple cycle recyclability. Unlike standard plastics that thermally degrade when remelted, Vitrimer linked engineered plastics can undergo multiple heating and recycling. So you can recycle them multiple times. So these are the advantages. Okay. Now, functional applications, you can use, you can create furniture or construction material via 3D printing, industrial and automotive components. Provides raw material for value-added industrial goods, consumer products, automotive components, boxes, all these things. Okay. Now, yeah. So here is a comparison between traditional brick and mortar construction, like normal construction material, and plastic construction material, recycled plastic construction material. So recycled plastic construction material has various advantages. So do check these advantages out. Okay. And well, yes, there are some challenges. First of all, well, each building material is standardized. You have to follow certain standards given by Bureau of Indian Standards, okay, and National Building Code. There are no standards for these plastic construction material. And for that, you need to conduct multiple tests. That is lacking right now. So this is a problem. Then psychological and cultural resistance. Okay, people are resistant towards this idea of using recycled plastic because of maybe in their mind psychologically they think that it is not, it is not hygienic. We don't want to use recycled material. There is psychological barrier inside people's head. So this is there. Plus collection and reverse logistics. What do you mean by that? Well, waste segregation at source is really important for this plan to work. Okay. Already we have significant deficit with respect to waste segregation at source. Okay, segregation between wet waste and dry waste. Already there is a challenge in that. How would you be able to segregate these soft plastics or milk packets? So this is a huge challenge. And then there is rag pickers disincentive. All of these challenges are there, but government is working on them. But you need to be familiar with the idea of circular economy, right? Okay then. Now let's quickly shift our focus to last news item of the day, and that is RBI worried about rising unsecured loans. Now let's finish this topic very quickly, okay? You see, well, Gen Z is known for increasing their consumption levels, okay? They are taking credit card loans and small loans to increase their consumption, buying iPhones, clothes and all that. And nowadays, well, this credit is also available freely. In fact, there are various apps called buy now, pay later apps. So you buy an iPhone today and you will have to pay later in installments or later, like 1 month late or 2 months late. So there are these financial companies who give credit or give these buy now, pay later facilities. Because of this reason, there is this huge rise in consumption, especially among the younger generation, right? Now, RBI is worried about that. Because this buy now pay later or this credit card debt, this is on the rise, and this is a form of unsecured debt. Now there are two types of debt loans: secured, which are backed by a collateral. So I am taking a home loan, I'll put my land as collateral. You understand? There is a collateral. And then there are unsecured loans, which are not backed by any collateral. If tomorrow the borrower defaults, well, he defaults, right? These are called unsecured loans. Now, consumption credit, buy now, pay later, or credit card, they are unsecured loans and they are on the rise. RBI feels that if this unsecured credit crosses a particular threshold, it will be too risky for banks and there can be mass defaults. Okay, so RBI is worried about that. So let's talk about this issue. But you understand the gist of the matter, right? Let's begin. So RBI worried about unsecured loans. Okay, so this is, RBI is blaming the Gen Z. RBI is not blaming Gen Z. It is actually reported that the younger generation is more consumption oriented. Okay, they have increased their consumption. The previous generation was more saving oriented. Right? Now, current situation with respect to consumption credit. Non-housing credit share has increased. Personal loans have increased. Credit card usage, credit base has increased. So these unsecured loans are on the rise. And the problem is, the reason why RBI is worried is they are unsecured. What if tomorrow all of them decide to default? Well, banks would be in a terrible situation. And RBI is the only regulator responsible for rescuing these banks also. So RBI is really worried about this. Okay. Now, what are the core drivers behind this rise of consumption credit? Well, Gen Z and fintech borrowing shift. Core drivers behind Gen Z and fintech borrowing shift. So, behavioral shift, remember, consumption led. The young generation is more consumption centric. The previous was saving centric. So, this is the reason. Then fintech proliferation. These financial companies, which are a mix of finance and technologies, they are offering these new credit products, credit cards, buy now, pay later. So proliferation of these technologies. This has allowed people to borrow very easily, and people are borrowing very easily for buying things, right? Then lower age threshold for first debt. When you talk about the previous generation, previous to Gen Z, it was the millennials. Now well, the average age for a millennial to take their first debt, first loan, was in mid-20s, 26, 27. For Gen Z, it is 22. Already very young Gen Zs do not mind taking loans, debt, credit card, buy now, pay later. So, I mean, this is a cultural shift. And there is availability of such kind of credit also. So, this is something that RBI is worried about. Okay. Now, risk matrix. Okay. I mean, what are the problems with unsecured credit? Why is RBI worried with this word unsecured? First of all, asset quality divergence. Banks' asset quality declines. Gross NPA 0.7% secured versus 1.7% unsecured. Of the total NPAs, default cases with banks, well, 1.7% are, I mean, if there are total 2.4% NPAs, right, then 1.7% of it is unsecured, which is roughly, I mean, 75% of total defaults in India are unsecured. So, well, it is natural for RBI to be worried. Then inadequate underwriting. Lenders struggle to verify variable freelance income sources among young earners. Whenever banks give you loans, they verify your income source to check whether you'll be able to pay back or not. But today, jobs are fluid. There are freelance workers. There are no proper salary slips. Yet a person is earning through YouTube, social media, and whatnot. So, well, it is very difficult for banks to verify before giving credit. And household savings strain. Consumption debt diverts household savings away from productive capital formation. Earlier, well, previous generation used to save a lot. They used to save in banks. Banks would use that money to lend to productive companies who would build assets. Now, well, people are not saving. These savings are not being channelized to productive asset formation for the country. They are being channelized to buy iPhones and whatnot. So this is a challenge for the entire country. Okay. Now, here is a comparison between secured credit and unsecured credit. So, well, we have already discussed it, but I have summarized the entire, whatever we have discussed so far in this table, and this table is shared in your notes, so do check it out. Right? Yeah. And there is also a way forward, how to solve this problem and what are some of the recommendations given by RBI. Okay, so do check that out as well from the notes. So please do read the notes. That would be all. So with that, we conclude today's session. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. Now, it will add more value if you do these two things. Number one, be consistent and regular with this lecture series. And number two, you have to revise this lecture just after watching it from the notes provided by us. It will take 15 minutes of your time, but these current affairs would get consolidated into your memory. And that's very important. You need to remember them at least till your exams, right? Okay then. On that note, I shall take your leave with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.